Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Bismillahi wa salatu wa salam Rasulillah. Today joining us we have Sheikh Yussuf Ayami. Jazakallah khairan, Sheikh, for taking the time to come speak to us today and sharing some knowledge from your side.
Well, I mean, and Jazakallah khairan for hosting me and for organizing and producing this program. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He's going to be miftah, a door for good to the Muslim Ummah and everybody that is associated with the program.
Ameen. Barakallah feekum. So what's interesting is I heard a lot about you before even meeting you, and from different individuals, and so it was quite curious because when I was reading through your profile, you studied in Azhar, mashallah. So what was your journey like, from a young man and eventually ending up studying there?
Jazakumullah khair. Very interesting journey. And as I was coming in and I met your son Khalid, I was very interested in him. I mean, the way he was dressed, the way he was looking. You can see there's this ruh muqawama, resistance and mashallah, heroism that we want to see in our young people. Now, the reason I'm referencing that point is because it's certain things that usually happen to us when we are young people that have got a bearing to how we become when we grow old. And unfortunately, quite a lot of people do not seem to understand, the profoundness of the experiences that one goes through when they are young. And so I went to Makeni Islamic. That's where, I did my, preschool, by then it was only nursery, and then primary, school. Secondary school, I went to Kamala, secondary school. Now, during the 80s, we used to have Egyptian sheikhs that would come, to Makeni. And there was one called Sheikh Fawzi, who used to be our teacher from, I think, grade 1, grade 2, until grade 3. Before, his contract ended, he left. Now, he was such a person that, had so much knowledge, Islamically. Of course, I would have loved to meet him now,
Right.
so that then I can listen to him now.
Right.
But at that particular time, whenever he spoke, he was eloquent and he was very knowledgeable. And he was my ustaz, he was my teacher. His impression on people was such that if he came to a place, nobody greeted him, of course, salam, salam. But if he ascended the mimbar, or if he took the podium, if it was not on a Jummah, and he spoke, by the time he came, everybody wanted to greet him, everybody wanted to know him.
Subhanallah.
I looked at him and I wanted to be like him. I just said, I have to be like him.
Okay.
And so I started working towards, okay, well, so how do I get to him? And so the journey, went on. Unfortunately, like I said, I think when we were in grade 5 or thereabout, he left. And so we continued with other shuyukhs. And then 2 years later, I left, Makeni. I went to Kamala Secondary School to go and do my secondary. Mindful of the fact that Makeni had just introduced secondary school by then, and we were going to be like the second intake. But I felt it was not strong enough. I really wanted to compete with everybody else, and I decided to leave, Makeni. And so during that period, my himma, my zeal and passion to being like Sheikh Fawzi kind of like dwindled, and nature took its course.
Right.
Until he came back. So when we were in grade 8, at Kamala, he came back.
Subhanallah.
And when he came back, he started mobilizing us. I remember coming from school and my mom was like, Sheikh Fawzi has come and he came here looking for you, because in the 80s there were no phones and everything.
Right.
He says he's come and he's looking for you. And all of a sudden, that him again came back. I met him, and then he said he had come specifically for one, particular, objective, which was to try and mobilize students that were going to go to Al-Azhar. Now, Al-Azhar had sent him to specifically prepare students that were going to go to Al-Azhar. But then, like I told you, I was, at Kamala High School. And so what he did is he organized 8 or, 10 of us, those that he considered to be, a good, students. And we used to have, weekend classes on Saturdays and on Sundays. And then, again, we'll do Quran, a little bit of Arabic, kind of like trying to prepare us. And then after 2 years, he left. And when he left, only one of the 10 students had managed to go to Egypt.
Mm.
Yahya.
Okay.
A very good friend
Right.
of mine. So he left. And so again, that himma again dwindled. But of course we had done applications and whatnot. And so I remember grade 8, I went into grade 10, grade 11, and then all of a sudden, I got a message that McKinney wanted me because our documents to go to Al-Azhar had come. And so now we needed to go to Al-Azhar. At that particular moment, Sheikh Mustafa, to tell you the truth, I was confused. I was no longer interested now in deen, in religious, studies. I just wanted to continue with my studies, and that's it.
Right.
I really didn't want to go. I think the emotions on the roller coaster had been just too much.
The up and down.
But the qadar, destiny of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intended that we should leave. Now, here's an interesting thing. So Yahya, who had gone, he was now 2 years in Egypt, and he was there, and he used to send us pictures, of the Nile River and what, and Sheikh Abdul Basit, and again, I was like, I really need to go to this place, regardless. Again, school. Then when I told him that, our documents are ready and we'll be joining you soon, then he sent me a letter that was like a bomb. He said, please don't come here.
Oh.
This is not the place you need to come to. The situation is not conducive. No, I would not, under any circumstances, route for you to come here.
Oh.
The tickets are almost there. We've done all the processes. What do we do? I told my mother, and my mother said, no, don't go. My father heard about that, and he said, Ragma Anfa, whether you like it or not, you have to go. At that particular moment, I wished I could be hit by a car, so that then I've got a problem that prevents me from going to Egypt, because I just didn't want to go.
Yeah.
But anyway, we left. That was in 1990 December. We went, to Al-Azhar in the company of my cousin Ishaq, the two of us. So now, from the 10 that had been mobilized by Sheikh Fawzi,
right,
there was now 3 of us that had left. 7, their issues. Yeah. So that's how come I found myself, in Egypt. And to tell you the truth, our stay in Egypt, was not so pleasant.
Oh.
I remember the first letter that I wrote,
Yeah.
After reaching there and, telling people back home that I had arrived safely, that was to my family, to my father. The second one was to my brother Omar, who was following me, who also had ambitions to come because he was also part of the 10.
Right.
And there was another friend of ours, his name was Bams. I said he's dead now. I just said, don't think of coming here. Just complete your studies there. Go to university, and yeah, because what Yahya had said was the truth. Unfortunately, just the conditions and everything were not mulahi. Like they were not conducive, for one to actually pursue, scholarship. So. But nevertheless, I was in Al-Azhar,
right,
and I am a product of Al-Azhar. When I look back, again, this is another mufaraka, this is another paradox.
Right.
I look back at my years, and I thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all those years that I stayed in Al-Azhar. So I know it's confusing,
no.
but yeah, in a nutshell.
It's a journey.
It's a journey.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's, subhanAllah, this is very interesting because a lot of times when we're in a specific situation, it seems so overwhelming and complicated. As you said, you just wish that something would happen. You wouldn't, and then when you look back and the dots, start to connect, and it's part of your journey and who you are today.
No, it's true. In fact, because of that, I've gotten, not to say that I hate my mom. No, I love her very much.
Yeah.
Very dear. But I have loved my father so much because he insisted that I should go. Now, I don't know why he insisted that. Of course, I mean, he also, as we were growing up, is a product of the Madaris,
Right.
now in Malawi.
Right,
So
right.
he would tell us how, like the system there was, the parents used to take their kids to an alim, in Ustad, that had probably come from Zanzibar. They used to call it Mbwani,
Okay.
there. And then he would come back and then he would form a Qatar, like a madrasa.
Right.
And so, parents would send their kids there. And what the pay, the fees was that you were going to cultivate for the farm land for the imam, for the muallim. So that was the pay that you would give, in exchange for the dars that you would give. And so the food that you eat is what you actually cultivate. So the maize, they use the maize to make, in Zambia we call it samp, but this would be ground maize, but not ground, to powder.
Right.
Yeah. So
a bit coarse.
Like, yes,
Yeah.
mid coarse.
Yeah.
So you'd have that one. And he would tell me. And then they would have mini meal, which would be like roller meal here.
Right.
That they would eat. And then one would be given, a piece of fish. And my dad used to tell me that fish, when it was given to you, you needed to be with it for a month, like one fish. So the way they would eat is like when they're eating in Shima, they would take the fish and put it close to the nose, so you smell the fish. And you're eating fish, but you're just eating. You have to portion it over and so. Those were the troubles that they went through. And so when he knows you're going to Egypt and you're telling him it's not good and everything, for him, like, what is not good compared to what he went through? But yes, like, now that I've come back and I've done this 360 degrees,
yeah,
I mean, I'm appreciative of him. As I speak to you, my kid is not with me, he's abroad, he's studying, somewhere. And I've always been telling him, as a way of encouraging him, that you cannot go through anything worse that I went through.
Right.
Just like I couldn't have gone through worse than what my father went through. So you can see 3 generations. And this is like fida, it's sacrifice that we're giving, for the purposes of deen, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept, the sacrifices of our parents, but also 100%. The sacrifices that we are making. And that's why when I came into your studio, the first thing that I did was to be overwhelmed. My eyes welled, and I was like, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless, the hands behind this project and make it a success.
Ameen.
Because, people actually go through a lot, to get to a stage where people begin to appreciate what they're doing. Like, people do not understand what goes behind
the legwork.
The background.
Yeah, for sure. And having said that, the inspiration behind this is that we could get personalities like yourself, who have been abroad, who have been immersed in the cultures of language, and we know that until it's a lifelong journey unlocking the Arabic language, because the Quran is an ocean; it's never ending, right? But many of us will not have this opportunity, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose you. And so on that note, for individuals who are at home, or some people never been on a plane, or people who don't have the opportunity, what would you recommend, considering you went from the ground up in a very knowledge-rich country in the studies of Deen? What would you recommend for a person just beginning in terms of their journey, learning the Arabic language and becoming closer to the Quran and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?
Well, I think the motivations now are different, than the motivations we had. I mean, yes, we had a Sheikh Fawzi, that motivated, some of us, myself, for example, and every time I pass by my king, the first person that comes to my mind is, Sheikh Fawzi. But today, the motivations are different, because I can see, in particularly now, as we speak, with what is happening in Gaza, there is this, renaissance, there is this, a love for Deen, for Islam, for Arabic, for understanding, of the Quran. So the motivation is there. It might not be a Sheikh Fawzi, it might be something else. Everybody, each one of us has got their own light bulb, that then says, look, this is what I want to do. But further to that, I think also the tools now are available much more than they were available then. You know. However, notwithstanding everything that has been said, when I listen to people saying I want to master the Arabic language and everything,
right,
in a way I feel sorry, you know, for them and for the Arabic language, because I'm like, okay, here is a language that people really want to be connected to,
right,
you know, but the circumstances are not there.
okay.
So Arabic, for your listeners, just so that it's clear, is very different from English. In which sense? The English that I'm speaking to you right now is the English that I learned in class. It's the English that I'm going to speak, you know, to anybody outside there. Of course, there will be varying degrees in terms of eloquence and articulation, but it's not English. Whilst as with Arabic, it's different. Right. So when you go, especially if you go to Egypt, you know, Egypt, you know, has got a place within the Arab world because of its population, but also its arts, you know, including, you know, I don't know what they call it in Egypt, you know, the Hollywood version, you know,
right,
you know, you know, Egyptian series, movies, and everything. That culture,
right,
you know, is quite very, you know, aggressive, you know, to the point of transgression, if I might use that word.
Okay.
Now, what does that mean? It means the Amma or the Ami, as we call it in Egypt, you know, that's the street language.
Yeah.
Is much more impressing on people than the Fusha.
Right now.
The Fusha is a classic Arabic.
Right.
So if I went today, you or me, you went to Egypt today, and then you say you met an Egyptian, you say Kayfa Haruk, which is how are you in Arabic?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, people will look at you and say, hey, who are you? Where have you come from? Like you look like an alien.
Yeah.
Because that's not the way they speak.
Right.
You know, you say, become tabi hada, you know, how much are you selling this?
Yeah.
I mean, they'll call each other and say, no, come and listen. Look. أنت بتحفظ القرآن. You memorize the Quran. You know, أنت أحمد شوقي. Like, are you this poet Ahmed Shawki? You know, like that.
Yeah.
Why? Because for them it's كيف حالك زيك. Okay, become tabi هذا يعني become that. You know, that's now. Here is now how do you learn Arabic if and you know that language is a social, issue.
Yeah.
You can only master it, you know, socially. So if you engage with people, I speak, I listen to what you say.
Right.
You know, and that's why even the accents that people, adopt, whether it's American accent, it's Japanese, it's Canadian accent, is because of what you've been hearing. So if I hear somebody say water, then I'm not going to say water.
Right.
Water. You know, so for you it's water.
Yeah,
you know, and then you come and people are like, but why are you saying water? It's because where you're coming from.
Right.
That's the way people say water.
Yeah.
You know, but also certain terminologies. You know, you go to South Africa, you know, they're like, give me the space. Like, okay, can you justify why you have done this? South Africans will say, can you motivate, for why you have done this? And if you've grown up in that environment, that's the way you're going to speak.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Now imagine somebody wanting to speak Arabic and that environment is not there.
Right.
Here in Zambia, if you speak to the Lebanese that are here, they will not say Mahal, they'll say Eshhu. So now Eshhu is not Arabic.
Right.
This is colloquial. It's like Creole. You know? Yeah.
Right.
So now I go back to the point. So you've got people that genuinely want to learn Arabic.
Right.
But the environment is not there.
Mm-hmm.
We need to create an environment within Zambia, and it will be a perfect place. If you could have 10, 15 people that are speaking Fusha in Zambia, because then they're not going to be affected by the Amma. So amongst, those 10 speaking amongst themselves, then you could get to a situation where the mastering of the language is increasing.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you have, cultural centers where people go there and you've got, asatiza or teachers that come from Egypt or from Sudan who are instructed to only speak in Fusha.
Mm.
And we have to converse with them using Fusha. block ourselves completely
Mm.
from, listening to Egyptians speak or Lebanese speak.
Right.
So that then we can protect the Arabic language, and then we can master it. So that would be the first point that that would be the first hajis, the first obstacle
Right.
that we need to overcome,
Mm.
in our mastering of Arabic. There's then the second point. And the second point is people want to master Arabic so they can understand the Quran.
No.
Now, what people again have to understand is that when you talk about Arabic, there is Lughat al-Quran and there is the Arabic language.
Mm.
Yes, you will understand quite a number of things if you have mastered Arabic, in the Quran, but you will not understand the Quran. Because if it was possible for somebody who speaks Arabic to understand the Quran, then there was not going to be need for tafsir. I mean, when you look at, the tafsir of Ibn Kathir, Ibn Qurtubi, and all those, these were Arabic speakers that were doing tafsir of the Quran.
Mm.
Now, how do you do tafsir of the Quran to people? And by the way, their works were not directed to non-Arabic speakers, to Arabic speakers.
Right.
So now the question that you need to ask is, but why would an Arabic speaker be in need of, tafsir? Because there's Lughat al-Quran and there is the Arabic language.
Mm.
The miracle of the Quran is such that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the Quran came and challenged the Arabs in their own language.
SubhanAllah.
So they heard for the first time words that had been used differently. So for example, when you write your thesis or any book, you'd have preface or you'd have the foreword or you'd have whatever.
Right.
Or introduction.
Right.
Common Arabic language, if you take any Arabic, document, that would be muqaddimah, like introduction.
Right.
But when you look within the context of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not call it muqaddimah, he said al-Fatiha. So this was a new terminology that was brought into the language of Quran that was not there. But now, al-Fatiha as a word, is it an alien word? No, it is a word that the Arabs know, but it had not been used in that context before. There's this famous story of how, some Arabs were fighting over a well, and no, this is mine, this is mine. And then one of them says, Ana fatartu. I'm the one who dug it, like I'm the one who initiated it.
Right.
And they were surprised because they had, read in the Quran, Fatir is samawati wal ard. And they hadn't understood what is Fatir, the beginner of the earth and the heavens, the initiator. So through this conversation, they understood, so Fatir is to start. But in common Arabic language, would you have somebody say, Ana fatartu? No, I mean, it would be like you're using a language that is not understood. Now, what is the point I'm trying to drive is that we need to manage expectations.
Correct.
The fact, first of all, you have to, conquer the obstacle of, BR, like environment. We need to find within Zambia an environment that enables us to speak classic Arabic without the influences of the colloquial Arabic.
Right.
Once we have done that, we also need to manage our expectation and say, just because we are able to speak Arabic eloquently does not mean that automatically we'll understand the Quran. Understanding the Quran requires juhd, requires effort.
Right.
And there's a very good book that was written by Mohsen Khan, I think, when he talks about, the way to the Quran. And he gives a very good analogy. He says, the Quran is like a mine. People go there. So some will come back with, heavy loads of stone, which you do not translate into anything.
Yeah.
Tired, exhausted, but they haven't gotten anything. They've just carried stone. But others will come back, with gems, that they're able to translate into something very valuable.
Right.
Now, the difference between the two is going to be the sincerity and the effort that they have applied in their mining. So even as you're mining the Quran, trying to find, the secrets of the Quran, your sincerity towards your endeavor is the one that is going to count.
SubhanAllah. SubhanAllah. Well said. And I'm sure, I'm sure we could continue. This topic is such a broad topic. And the motivation behind this particular question actually is because One of the things when I came here that I noticed, mashallah, is the hearts of the Zambian people is beautiful. It's one of those things where, they're open to conversations. And when you travel, and I'm sure you've traveled so many different places, you notice that there's a culture and influence depending on individuals and how they deal with people. But Zambians, mashallah, they seem so open. And so what I used to wonder to myself is, you know, why the lack of dawah? How come we have not built more bridges? And when I speak to certain people, and there's lack of confidence in their own understanding their own deen, and I know dawah is a passion of yours. So give us one or two practical steps, and I know this is an oversimplification, but just a few practical steps on what can we do to build bridges. A lot of, even when I meet local Zambians, it's a very strong Christian society. They have no idea that we actually believe in Isa alayhi salam, Jesus is a prophet. And it's such a small but heavy point. So what are a few steps in your experience, of doing the work of da'wah, that we as Muslims can take to help establish and build bridges? The Quran talks about this, at least the commonalities. There's no need to debate, or there's no need to get into arguments, right? But just share the commonality so that there's a sense of community and brotherhood that can be established. So if you can share with us a couple of pieces of advice.
Yeah. I mean, that is a phenomenon that you usually find, in countries, that have got a Muslim minority. Now, I know you yourself, or not probably yourself, or your listeners might argue and say, well, I mean, like when you go to the States, I mean, Islam is a minority. No. Yeah, I mean a minority as in like the numbers. I'm talking about absolute numbers.
Right.
Okay, I'm not talking of like a minority, but I'm talking of absolute numbers.
Right.
That is one. So you will find that da'wah in countries like Zambia, Botswana, Namibia, it's not like in South Africa. So
right.
In South Africa, and because before we started this conversation, you hinted that you have been in South Africa. You will know that Muslims in South Africa are a minority, but not in that sense.
Yes.
There's a good number of Muslims.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
So that's the first thing. So we have to be realistic to the fact that Zambia is always going to be in the category of your Botswana, your Namibia, your Lesotho, your Swaziland. It's there. Things take a different curve when you now start going up, like in Malawi, in Tanzania, where Muslims are a minority, but in numbers they're absolute. So
right.
That's the first thing.
Right.
The second is how indigenous is Islam in those particular areas. So when you look at the Muslim minorities in Malawi or in Tanzania, they are a minority, but they are owners of the land. In Zambia, most Muslims came from somewhere. So either from India,
right.
either from Malawi,
right.
either from Tanzania. And so for a great deal of time, they always looked at themselves as in, we don't belong here. And so we don't want to do anything that might be seen to come against, the government, and it's going to jeopardize our stay here.
Right.
So they were trying to be politically correct.
Right.
So, I mean, these are my opinions, because I've done some reflection over the issue.
Sure.
So you find there's that thing of like, whilst as in Malawi, I mean, they would impose themselves. In fact, they've had a president or two who have been Muslims. Bakiri Muluzi was a Muslim. Joyce Banda was a Muslim, half Muslim, because one of her parents, as I understand, was Muslim. So you can already see there.
The influence.
In Tanzania, it's the same. Okay.
Right.
Whilst when you come to Zambia, you come to Zimbabwe, you come to these areas, it's really far-fetched. The third is that when the works of da'wah have taken place, they have been inward-looking and not outward. So, without mentioning names,
right?
I mean, it's da'wah directed to. So let's go and visit our Muslim brothers,
right?
Remind them to pray and everything, and not really. Let's reach out to non-Muslims to call them to Islam,
okay.
And tell them about Islam. So for me, these three issues have really affected our dawah up until recently.
Right.
Now, what is happening in order to challenge these three is all of a sudden you're now beginning to see indigenous Muslims more and more embracing Islam.
Right.
And again, I usually look at that phenomenon and I say, this is an indication really that Islam is the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because when I look at the juhd, the effort that we Muslims have exerted in bringing about the status quo, it's negligible. But however, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His own infinite wisdom, ways have been found where we've now gotten more Muslims that have joined. But added on to those are people like myself who, Zambians by, naturalization. We were born here. So our parents, who up until recently probably did not want to do dawah because they didn't want to affect their stay here. I, on the other hand, can do because I'm a Zambian. I belong here.
Right.
So that together with you're having, so the same even with the Indian community. So you're having more and more, mashallah, you see the work that is happening. Like this work that you're doing, the work that Al-Azhar is doing and the others, is now, you can see that it's taking, a nuance that reflects the fact that these people know that this is our home. We are here to stay.
Right.
And so they really want to, contribute towards the development of this. By the way, when we are talking about dawah, people usually think, I don't know what people think, but dawah is about trying to, mobilize people, for development.
Yes.
So that their situation here on the earth can be fine, just like in the hereafter. So in fact, governments are supposed to embrace dawah. You want to have a civil servant that is God-fearing, but how are they going to be God-fearing as a result of dawah? So now we are beginning to see, mashallah, these, either first generation Zambians or second generation Zambians joining now, in the work of, dawah together with, the local Zambians. Now the third point is the availability of technology is also now beginning to help.
Right.
How? Because people don't necessarily now need to say, I need to go to Al-Azhar. Although you cannot take away the need for you to be in front of an ustad so that then you can get, that instruction in ijaza and whatnot. But nevertheless, there are still things available now on YouTube that people can listen to, then, are backed by sound, guidance that can qualify people to do da'wah work. Because again, you cannot engage in da'wah when you are lacking in knowledge. And so we're beginning to see that. We're beginning to see online courses, the international, online university, which was the Islamic online university before of Bilal Phillips, the work that you reference that you are doing. There's quite a lot of work that is happening online, that people can join to and, get the necessary qualifications that would qualify them to engage, in da'wah. What we need to do, in my opinion, is we don't have to despair, but we need to understand the trajectory.
Right.
And begin to appreciate that this is a natural transformation that is leading us to somewhere where, there's really light at the end of the tunnel. So that is where we're coming from in terms of da'wah, but that's where we are in terms of da'wah. And I think when we understand where we are coming from and where we are, then such efforts like yours then, need to be pushed and supported so that then they take us, to another platform.
SubhanAllah. Yeah, it's I love how you put that. That even if studying the life of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he created value for the society. He was a problem solver, and if we are known to be individuals like that, like people would come to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam to resolve their issues, even the non-Muslims, because they understood he was the epitome of justice.
So just on that point,
right?
That is where I think for me, we are at the crossroads.
Right.
Not only in terms of what I've mentioned, but the content,
right?
The content of the da'wah.
Right.
Because unfortunately, where we have coming from, and maybe because our parents wanted to be politically correct, the emphasis was very much on salah or what. We're not saying that shouldn't be done.
Yeah,
No, that should be done.
That's core. Yeah.
But we need to get to a point where we add value, like like the point that you mentioned, like when non-Christians or non-Muslims, hear or listen or get hold of the fact that Jesus is mentioned in the Quran. He's mentioned?
Yeah.
No. But I said, but mentioned. Do you know that it's our core belief that Isa alayhi salam, Jesus is going to come and is going to be the sign of Qiyamah?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they change.
Right.
So yes, there is need for us to share the basic.
Yeah.
The basics of Islam.
Yeah.
What Islam is all about. What we believe in, and even the prayer, how it's done, and everything. But we also need to get Islam to a point where it's a problem solver.
Right.
You are having an economic problem, Islam is going to sort it out for you.
Right.
You are having a social problem,
right.
Islam is going to sort it out. And once people begin seeing that,
right.
Now there's the COP28 that is going on in Marat. We as shuyukh in our mosques, we need to take advantage of that and talk to people about what Islam says about climate change.
Yeah.
People need to.
Yes.
You cannot have a situation where there's a climate change, conference that is taking place.
Yeah.
And in our masajid, there's no mention about climate change. What are we saying?
Right.
Are we saying that Islam has got nothing to do with climate change? Recently in Zambia, we had, last week, we had, a conference on public health. There is no way that we can have imams, shuyukhs going on members and don't say anything about public health. So Islam is not concerned about public health?
Right, 100%.
How you are supposed to take care of those people so that then later on, you can deliver them safely to where they're supposed to. Are we talking about that in our masajid? Once we are able to take the conversations of dawah to that level, then it will resonate with people.
Right.
I mean, I usually tell my fellow sheikhs and I say, why is it that during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, when he said, La ilaha illallah, it would raise hairs. And people would, today you say La ilaha illallah, and people, it doesn't affect. Why? It's the manner in which we are delivering that La ilaha illallah.
Yeah, 100%. Interesting enough, even when I teach young children, because children naturally, the fitrah is pure. And when I teach them about kindness to animals, right? And this is something that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the famous incident of the bird who was, who was hysterical in a state of distress, and Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was concerned of returning his eggs, or the tree that wept, right? And we can't just pick and choose. Islam is a holistic solution for everybody, not for specific race or specific person. So I 100%, I really see where you're coming from, and I think inshallah with time, as you said, we're starting to take ownership and responsibility of moving forward and sharing the beautiful deen. Last but not least, I don't take so much of your time. This is a question which I'm having difficulty with myself as I've returned back here. Is we have new Muslims that come to the masajid, and I love engaging. What's life like? And so there's what they reference or they call here in compounds, right? In South Africa, they call them the what is it called? Not the compounds. They call them the I forget. There's another name. South Africa one.
Yes.
The locations. Yeah, locations. So one of the brothers was telling me, he's like, you have no idea how hard it is to hold on to your iman in a compound. He said alcohol and opportunity for zina is rife. It's part of that everyday life, and I never thought of it, and I struggled to give him a solution. So we'll end with this: for those individuals who are new Muslims, or those people who at their particular point in life cannot leave those type of areas, what can they do to hold on to the rope of iman?
Well, I mean, to begin with, I think, and again, just earlier on I said, when you look at the way Islam is advanced in the place, like Zambia, you can only say, Wallahi, this is the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because we haven't done enough.
Right.
And my answer to your question is going to reflect, but just so that your viewers can be clear and know what you're talking about. it is cheaper to commit zina than to marry.
Yeah.
Because for something as low as $1 or $2, you can get a woman that you can do zina with.
Yeah.
It's cheaper to eat pork meat than to go and buy halal meat, because pork meat you will find it for as little, as $1, $2. But then proper meat, halal from a Zambia certified, a butchery is going to cost you, something, close to $10, thereabout. It's cheaper, to buy beer, the opaque beer, as compared to buying a bottle of mineral water. What am I trying to drive at? It's cheaper in order for you to engage in halal acts, and it's expensive for you to live a Muslim life. But even in such circumstances, people live an Islamic life. People opt to go for expensive things in order to hold themselves. So much so that it's very common here in Zambia, for Zambians, non-Muslims, to usually look at Muslims as in like they're not Zambians, because they don't understand. How is it that you don't drink? How is it that you don't eat pork? How is it that you do not engage in zina? But it shows the iman. And so for those people, you don't go to them to talk to them about, you need to have iman. Those people have to, waddle through water, especially now in the rainy season, in order to get to a mosque. They don't have cars. To pray Salat al-Fajr, they have to risk, their security, because they might meet gangs or things like that. But they still go to the mosque. So you don't go to those people and talk to them, you need to have iman. No. What you need to do with those people is to come up with empowering programs. And this is where we need to take our da'wah. This is where we need, and I'm answering now in your question.
Right.
Our da'wah now, building on what our elders have been doing, we, the younger generation, now need to take it to another level of proper mobilization, where we say, in each masjid, there is a program for youth, there is a program for women, there's a program for, the parents. And these programs are empowering. What do I mean empowering? Life skills, things like that. We don't necessarily need to give them money, but just teach them skills in order for them to survive those harsh conditions. Not about their iman, they have. And so, added to that, of course, the iman thing is going to be, because whatever we're going to be presenting, we're going to be presenting them within the Qalam, within the mold of Islam. So that is going to happen. But the emphasis is going to be on how are we empowering those people. That too, therefore, is going to indirectly affect, those non-Muslims that have reverted to Islam. Because one of the major problems we're facing right now, even now as I'm speaking to you, there are people on my phone that have been reaching out to me, we've been introduced to you, we want to join Islam, and I ask them where they stay, and I know the state of the masajid where they're coming from. It's where people just go and pray and leave. Now, here is a revert, they've come to pray. Salam, salam, everybody, leaves. What do they do? Imagine if there was a program, you're a revert, you are joined to a program. If you're a woman, to a women's program. If you're a youth, to youth program. If you're father-like, to the father's program. So you are learning your Islam within the context of, capacity building, skills, building, assertiveness. How do you deal with a situation that you're the only person that is coming from within, in a Christian family, you're the only Muslim in a Christian family. So it's Ramadan, you have to wake up for suhoor. They have to use the same pots in order to cook pork. What? How do you do that?
Right.
So how do we empower such people? I think this is an element that has been ignored so much.
Right.
Like we have concentrated on no iman. Yes, we need to talk about iman. But we need to understand that, there are many things that we need, after, somebody has, accepted the Shahada, whether they are Muslim already or not, there are certain things that we need to do in a practical manner that it helps them to hold on to their deen. Because for me, that is something like, so if we want, we shouldn't even worry about, but they're living in an environment where there's alcohol. No, these people are making sacrifices. These people are coming from places where they do not have a bathroom. The bathroom that is available for them is a nearby tavern.
Right.
So if they want to go and use the bathroom, they need to go. But they are willing to leave their home and go all the way to the masjid, in order for them to relieve themselves at the masjid and bath at the masjid. Unfortunately, and I have to say this, you still have brothers of ours, some who have sponsored the building of this masajid, that would come and look up those bathrooms and say, no, these bathrooms are not supposed to be used by people, because they're just for Musalli. But, these people have got a life. And this is the only bathroom that they have. They are living in a rented place that doesn't have a bathroom. Like, it's a rented place that has got, 10 one-roomed houses all together in what we locally call dadada. And they have, one bathroom, and each one has to use that. Or even the person that built that did not even, build those sanitary, facilities. And like I've said, they have to use a nearby, tavern.
Right.
And so these, out of their iman, say, no, I can't use that. I'll go to the masjid where, there's, respect, and then, for my own deen. And then you say you're going to close, because no, the bathrooms are being abused. So I know, my answer might seem to be long-winded, but basically what I'm trying to say is that we shouldn't worry about the iman of those people. They have iman, and I will not go to them and say, you need to have iman. No, and that's why if you follow my bayans when I go to the masajid, I don't talk to people about iman, but I talk to them about how do we empower ourselves. How do we get ourselves to a situation where we are capable of being self-sufficient. We are capable of taking care of our own vulnerable people. We are capable of meeting our own needs. That's where we need to. And if that becomes the goal, then everything else is going to fall naturally.
SubhanAllah. Yeah, very similar. I like to emphasize on Iman for a different reason. Not taking away from what you said. I know, even in prophetic tradition, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, when there's someone that came to the masajids in need, he would, ask the Sahaba who can donate, who can give what. So we have to take care of the social needs. For me, the reason why I like to emphasize an Iman specifically, in addition, is because on top of all that, and I'm not taking away from what you said, is that I do believe there's an ideological struggle that's happening also, and there's been a lot of undercover, especially online, attacks on the iman of people, and it breaks very easily. But that's the thing. I don't think these things can go hand in hand, right? And I don't think they're mutually exclusive. Like when I speak to people and I find them, why do Muslim brothers go meet other Muslim brothers? That has its place, but I don't think it has to stop there, right? Nor do I think we remove it, right? So, I think as you mentioned, it's a growing process as people here take ownership, and as we, try and come up with solutions. Inshallah, we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to create muhabba and a sense of community amongst us. Having said that, it's been a pleasure and honor. Honestly, it's very nice to hear things from a different perspective with all your knowledge and your experience. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you and your children everything the best in this world and the next. And we hope we can have you again, inshallah.
Jazakumullah khair for inviting me, and we pray once again for the success of the program.
Ameen.
But also we should not forget the vulnerable people in Gaza and Palestine, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can give them nusra.
Ameen.
Yeah, we're looking forward to making another appearance on this podcast, inshallah.
Inshallah. Barakallahu feekum. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.